Hey, welcome to the series of everything you need to know about Python in simplest possible way. In the series of pattern printing, so far we have seen so many patterns. In this video, we will be seeing this particular pattern and how we can print this particular pattern. So, if you carefully see here, we have 5 rows here. So, for that reason, I will take a variable rows to mention to keep track of how many rows we are having. For that reason, I am mentioning rows is equal to 5. If you carefully observe this pattern, apart from numbers, we are also having spaces here. So without actually printing these spaces, we cannot actually print this particular pattern. So for that reason, we need to keep track of the spaces and we need to print these spaces before actually printing the patterns. So for that reason, I will take a variable spaces equal to, so how to and where to start with the spaces. So for that reason, we will first identify the first iteration, which is a first row, which how many number of spaces that we are having. So let us understand how many number of spaces that we are having in the first row. So for that reason, we will go along with these spaces. So this was the first space, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we are having totally 9 spaces out of 10 positions. This one is having one positions occupied and remaining positions are occupied with spaces. Can I make a statement like 2 multiplied with how many number of rows that I'm having minus 1? So by mentioning this, I am having how many number of rows which are 5, 5 into 2 which results 10, 10 minus 1 which results 9 here. So that is what the spaces that we are having, right? So why I am mentioning this logic is because if we change the values of rows, this pattern will change, right? So for that reason, we have identified this logic which is of 2 into how many number of rows that we are having minus 1. So by having this logic, even the rows values changed, this logic remains constant. For that reason only, I am mentioning this logic. So now we will start printing this pattern. So if you see here, we have 5 rows here. So these 5 rows, to get these 5 rows, we will use a for loop to generate these 5 rows. For that reason, I am mentioning for I in range. We need to generate a range of values. So what are the range of values? So I will start with 1. I will go till rows plus 1. So by mentioning this rows plus 1, I am starting with rows. I am going till the value of rows. So that is what we wanted, right? So we need to start with 1 and we need to go till the value of 5. So that is what and how many number of rows that we are having here, right? So for that reason only, I am getting the range of values from 1 to how many number of rows that we are having. So if I go inside of this for loop, let us understand what we have inside of this for loop. So for that reason, I am mentioning a print statement and I will print the value of I here. So if I execute this, I am getting the result as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the new line. So if you carefully see this pattern and compare this with this result, we are getting the values exactly and almost same. But only thing that what we have is that we are having everything in a single line, everything in a new line with only one value. So we can actually develop a logic for that as well. So first we need to understand how we can relate this particular result with this particular pattern. So here in the first row we have only one. The second row we have two twos. In the third row we have three threes. The fourth row we have four fours. So like that we can actually print by using this I value with by mentioning one more for loop. Why I am mentioning one more for loop is because these values 2, 2, 3, 3 are repeating on each row. What we do generally when the values or when the statements are repeating, we generally use loops, right? So for that reason only we will be mentioning one more for loop here. So for j in range, so what is the range of values for that we need to generate? I will start with 1. I will go with till I plus 1. So that is what we needed, right? So the main intention, the main focus is on I. So by having this I only, we can actually generate this pattern. So that is what I am mentioning here. I am starting with 1. I am going till the value of I. So inside of this, for loop, inner for loop, I will just print the value of I. So if I just simply print this, I won't get the actual pattern, but let us try. So I can able to get this particular values here. So if we can relate this with the pattern, we have 1 1, we have 2 2s, we have 3 3s, and we have 4 4s, and we have 5 5s. That is what we have in this pattern. We have got the values. The only thing what we need to do is that we need to arrange them accordingly. So I am mentioning an end here. So why I am mentioning end is that by default, print statement having this end parameter as new line. Because of that reason only, we are getting everything in the new line. So if I execute this, I can able to get the result everything in a single line. But that is not also what we wanted. So what we are going to mention here is that after completion of this each for loop, we will be mentioning a print statement. So by mentioning this, after completion of this one value, a new line will be came, and after completion of this printing two values, we will get a new line. So that is what the intention here. So by mentioning simply this print statement results a new line. So if I execute this, I can able to get this particular pattern, but this is not what we have expected. So if you listened carefully what I have said previously, we have these spaces here. Without actually printing these spaces, we cannot actually print this particular pattern. So for that reason, we need to print the spaces. Where exactly we need to print? So before actually printing the numbers, so here we are printing these numbers, we need to print the spaces before this. For that reason, I will be printing the spaces as and when I enter into the outer for loop. So for that reason, I am mentioning a print statement in outer for loop, and I am mentioning a space. By using string multiplication, I will multiply this single space with the spaces variable here. I am mentioning spaces variable, and I will mention an end statement with nothing. So I don't want, by default end statement will have new line character, but I don't want any new line character. So if I execute this, we will get this result. But the mistake that what we have done and the improvement that what we need to do is that on each iteration, if you see here, the spaces are reducing by 2. So that is what the pattern that we are having here. So what we need to do is that we need to reduce the spaces after completion of each iteration, after completion of this each inner for loop. For that reason, I will mention spaces minus equal to 2. So that is what the spaces are reducing on each iteration. So now if I execute this, I can able to get the actual pattern that what we have expected here. So now I hope you can able to understand this particular logic to generate this particular pattern. If not, let me explain one more time with quickly how we are actually generating this particular pattern. So we have identified rows, which are 5 rows. We have also identified we need to print spaces before actually printing these particular numbers. So for that reason, we have taken the spaces and we are generating these rows. How many number of rows we are having using this outer for loop. After that, we are printing these spaces to actually print this particular pattern. We need spaces. For that reason, after when we enter into the outer for loop, we are actually printing the spaces. After that, we are using one more for loop to generate these values on each row here. So by using this j variable, we are generating a range of values from 1 till the value of I. So inside this, we are actually printing the value of I because that is what we can actually generate this particular pattern. After that, we are adding a new line character on of each completion of inner for loop. At the end, we are mentioning spaces minus equal to 2. By mentioning this, we are reducing the spaces. So as we have identified in this pattern, we need to reduce the spaces. For that reason, we are reducing the spaces 2 on each iteration. Now we will take dynamically input from the user. Based on the user input, we will print the pattern. So for that reason, I am taking int input enter rows. I am asking user to enter rows. If I execute this, so it was asking me to enter rows. If I give 8 here, so I can able to get this particular pattern with the input of 8. So you can relate this pattern with actual pattern here, right? We are getting the same pattern. So if I enter, let's say the value of 9 here, so I can able to get the same pattern that what we have identified, that what we have expected. I hope you have found this video interesting. If that is true, hit the like button. The next video we will see how we can actually print this particular pattern. So to stay updated, hit the subscribe button and hit the notifications to all, so that whenever I upload any video, you will get the notification. So thank you for watching this video. See you in the next one.